Run slow to get fast. Makes no sense, right? Well, if you want to be a great endurance athlete, if you want to be a great runner, you need to fully develop your aerobic system. And that is exactly what the Maffetone method is all about. Again, MAF, the MAF method, stands for maximum aerobic function. And if you want to figure out how to improve yourself, you need to figure out where you're at to begin with. And the way you do that is by doing a MAF test, maximum aerobic function test. Endurance training is all about the cardiovascular system. And if you want to understand how well you can use your cardiovascular system, you need to figure out how to monitor and use and train according to your heart rate. Ideally, over time, as you get to become a better runner, you can run faster speeds, you can run longer distances, but with a lower heart rate. You become more efficient at using your body overall. You just think about it like if you're trying to build a super cool, fancy car, you don't just want to get better tires, get a new fancy exterior, get better materials to build the car out of. You want to focus on getting a better engine in there that eventually raises the capacity for it to go faster. So with a better engine, and you can eventually develop your muscles, so to say, and develop your actual hardware that you're operating on, you can become faster. But the most important thing is you have to get a better engine. So that's what the MAF test is all about. What kind of engine do you have to begin with? If you want to become a better runner, if you want to become a better endurance athlete, you need to do a few things. One, get a heart rate monitor to get the best data to actually measure the test. And typically that'll sync up with a watch, so to say. So I have two Garmin accessories right here. Great, highly recommend them. I'll have links to what they are in the description down below. And then once you got your gear to test and measure your heart rate as you're running, as you're doing any form of endurance training, go and find some place that gives you very consistent variables to test. So this could be a flat Olympic track for like a 1600 meter track, 400 meter track, or you could do a treadmill. It's another great opportunity. Or if there's some area in your neighborhood you can go run that is just very flat or whatever, or at the very least, if you have none of the above and you just want to go run anywhere, make note of where you run and the route you ran, so that way the next time you do it, like a month later, typically you do this every month, you go do that same route again and test those same variables again in that same place. Now, before we do anything else, we need to have an idea of how to do the test. And for that, the only other thing you need to know is your maximum aerobic training heart rate. All science behind this, it's kind of interesting around the history of different heart rates that people thought you should use. The Dr. Philip Maffetone here came down to, I'll have some B-roll over this, he came down to using the new 180 formula, which there's no real reason around why it's 180, it's just it works. So use 180, subtract your age, and then that theoretically should be your maximum training heart rate. And to do this MAF test, run 3 miles, 5 miles, do whatever sort of distance that you can do, repeat again, and then never go above that heart rate, but then take note of the pace that you have for each mile and each sort of distance that you are measuring throughout the test. So, MAF test. Find your maximum training heart rate, go run a certain distance in similar variables that you can test again a month later, and then just make note of the pace that you have at that heart rate. Ideally, over time, your pace becomes faster, but your heart rate stays the same. So, additional details by Dr. Phil here. As you kind of test month by month in just an aerobic base building period, when you're only doing just very low heart rate training, your time should get faster at the same heart rate. So on page 82 right here, my man outlines someone's like an example of their test month after month, and their times gradually get faster, but their heart rate has stayed the same. Now, do note in here, the times given on this person's test kind of decrease mile after mile, and this just naturally accounts in for your body fatiguing throughout the 5-mile test, 3-mile test, whatever you're doing. So don't be alarmed if that's the case. If each mile is not the same, that's okay. That all being said, let's jump into it. This is what I did for my test. Hump day! Good morning. It's Wednesday. I'm about to head to my nearest track, which you would be surprised in Western Kansas how rare an Olympic track is. But there's one roughly 10-15 minute drive away. Gonna go head there. Gonna do the test on a nice flat even surface, but there's a lot of things that can change and affect your performance on this test. Whether that be like literally just a headwind, pressure, like turning at different altitudes, like rain or snow, temperature, that's going to be the biggest one today. and just a few other things, whether that be just like actual behaviors around how well you slept, what you ate. Like, it's just like any other performance around a test or any other race day. So, but today is temperature. It is like 33 degrees out right now, a little bit cold. I got layers right now, as you can see. And what I'm expecting is it's April. Next time I do this test, like a month away, 2 months away, it'll be a lot warmer. So with a colder temperature, I could technically run faster with the same heart rate. So my paces today may be faster than I may expect. And then the improvements I make later on may not be as significant, because when I do the test again, it'll be a little bit warmer outside. But doing this all on a flat track is really important, just to get a very subjective, very objective, very non-influenced result, if that makes sense. I forget the difference between those two. I have to look it up. It's a little bit earlier for this. As we get going, I usually train fasted in the morning as well, so I still haven't eaten anything, but I have used an electrolyte powder. I got a normal amount of sleep that I usually do, go to bed around like 10:30, 11, and then I wake up at 6:30. Oh gosh. Anyways, you'll see me there. Here we are, and I'm gonna flip this around if you can see that. 36 degrees right there. So it's gonna be a little bit cool to get warmed up, but I think once I'm running, I'll feel just fine. So let's get it. Let's run it. All right, we made it. I had to go to the bathroom, but as a guy, it's pretty easy to do. So here's the game plan. I have got the heart rate monitor on. You should do a good warm-up, a good solid 10-15 minute warm-up. So I'm going to do a lap around, just walking nicely, and do some dynamic stretches, and then we're just going to get into it. Just a nice 5-mile jog. And what you need to do is to make sure you aren't running above your aerobic threshold. So for me, 180 minus 22, I'm 22 years old, 158. I should keep my heart rate below 158 through this entire race. And then that, based off of keeping my heart rate there, what are the paces I run? And then that's what I should run every day in training. And then a month later, ideally, I keep my heart rate at 158 again, but my paces for each mile should be a little bit faster. And that's how you know you're running slow to get faster, because you can do faster work at the same heart rate. So let's do it. All right, warm-up lap done, stretches done. It is so much colder than I thought it was going to be. There's a nice crispy wind coming at you. So 20 laps to go. I made it this far. I'm here already. I'm gonna do it. It's gonna be a little bit cold, but 20 laps. Here we go. Let's do this. Mile 1, 9:09 pace. If you can hear me, I'm cold. Mile 2, 9:16. Actually feel pretty good now. 3 miles up, 3 miles down. Now 2. If you know where that's from, you're a real one. Anyway, it's mile 3, 9:18. Feeling great. Mile 4, the watch said 9:19 about 100 meters ago, but I just now crossed it, so like 9:30 probably. And we are crossing the finish line right there. Mile 5. Again, it said like 200 meters ago. It said like 9:16, so I'm gonna guess like 10 minutes for the full 1,600 meters. All right, 5 miles done, MAF test done. You know you did that well when you finish it. Be like, oh, I could keep running. That feels pretty good. So I'll talk about it more in the car once we get there, but I'm gonna do a little cool down walk to finish, and then we will assess the results. All right, well, that was an adventure. We are back here. I didn't want to talk in the car. I just want to get home, take a warm shower, get some coffee, enjoy some food. So came back, and for each of the pace here, it was, my first mile was 9:09, then 9:16, 9:18, 9:19, and then 9:16. Those were the mile markers on my watch, but when I was running on the track, the watch went off sooner than like the actual 1,600 meter mark. And I thought that was just because like, oh, 1,600 meters isn't exactly a mile. A mile is typically a little bit less than 1,600 meters. Well, no, that's not the case. I actually looked it up. A mile is 1,609 meters. So if anything, the watch should have gone off a little after I have crossed the mark. So I think that's just GPS error. So I'll I made note of it in my little training log here that I think in reality it was more so like mile 1, mile 2, mile 3 were pretty on par. And then mile 4, instead of it saying 9:19, I just wrote down like roughly 9:40. And then mile 5, instead of 9:16, I just wrote down like roughly 10 minutes. So I think those numbers with the adjusted numbers, those all make sense. Naturally got a little bit slower throughout the test, but nothing significant. And then also nothing truly, like, overall my heart rate was 158, 180 minus 22. That's my age, 158. So my heart rate it did go around mile 4 at one. I saw 159 once, but for like 5 seconds, and then drop back down just because I naturally I was like, whoa, hold on, slow down there a little bit, buckaroo. And I like 5 seconds out of the 50 minute test. Statistically, I think that's insignificant, but you should still note of it. You should just still make note of those instances. So you can always try to become a better athlete in practice. Anyways, some notes to take away. I felt great after I finished the test. I think that's how any low heart rate run should feel like. You should feel like, oh, I could keep going for another 3 miles, another 5 miles. So that's a good sign that you weren't pushing yourself too hard and you kept that intensity low enough to train in that right appropriate heart rate for you. And then second thing, with it being so cold, I expect, since it was cold, my heart rate could stay lower because my body didn't have to work as hard to cool myself down. So this is crazy weather because yesterday it was like 85 in the afternoon. I went and run and I had to walk half of it because I was just hot. Today, this morning, 35 degrees, super cold, and had no problems keeping a faster pace while keeping my heart rate down a little bit lower. As temperatures start to warm up just from spring into summer, I imagine maybe next time as it's hotter out, I'll have pretty similar times, but yet, how does that work out? I'll have similar times, but my heart rate will be the same, but the temperature is higher. So essentially, I can do more difficult work, but still keep other things the same. So that is still a sign of improvement. So even if I do this test a month later, 2 months later, and I'm getting similar paces, I can still know confidently that I'm getting better, even if the paces are the same, because it's the temperature, it's more difficult circumstances to train in, if that makes sense. To avoid that, I will try and do this test again, but early in the morning when it's still relatively cool out. Here in the humid spring summers of Kansas, it's still relatively cool in the mornings, which is really nice, but it gets very hot during the afternoons, during the days. So little thing to take note of there. Other than that, this was fun. This was great. One of my big things with my own coaching is step 1 is actually realizing what step 0 even is. You can't know where you're going until you know where you're at. So knowing this as my starting point gives me all the clarity around moving forward and how to move forward effectively. So that way, the things that I am doing, I know I can do properly and make progress properly without getting 10 steps down the road, realizing I was heading in the wrong direction, theoretically, figuratively, whatever the right word for that is. The only other thing to point out is that I just really enjoy these Saucony Endorphin Speed 3 shoes. They just fit my feet really well and they feel great while running. So highly recommend those if you are still trying to figure out a good daily trainer. I'll probably do a short 2-minute Tuesday video reviewing them just because they're a great shoe for a lot of different reasons, but they aren't the best shoe at one specific thing. But I think that's a plus in my scenario because I just wanted one shoe that was good at everything. So that's all we got for the MAF test. This is more than running. If you enjoyed this video, leave a comment. If you're getting into running and you have any other questions, let me know, because as I am learning more and reading more and diving more into this book, I'm about 200 pages in out of 400, 500, so more things to learn. I think I'm about to get into the nutrition and diet sort of recovery side of things, which will always be super fascinating. There's always a bunch of questions for that. I'm still eating the same diet. If you ever want to watch that, I'll have that link to my video below as well. And the other thing to expect next week is there's a chapter in here where he says while you're in an aerobic base building period, you shouldn't do any other form of anaerobic training. And that includes resistance training in the gym. So I'm doing a little experiment. If I only do aerobic running at a low heart rate, and I do no gym workouts, nothing else, how much will my physique change in a month of doing that? And how much strength will I lose or maintain? I don't know. We'll figure it out. So this is now week 1 of doing no gym workouts and only running at a low heart rate zone to build my aerobic base. I think it'll be fun. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Other than that, hope you guys enjoyed. Take care of yourselves, and you'll catch me in the next one.